Coming up on episode 382 of Wheel Bearings, we got the Kia K4 GT line, the Nissan Kicks, the Buick Enclave Part 2, Honda and Nissan signing an MOU to merge, rebutting some comments about the upcoming Ram 1500 Ramcharger from TFL, our favorites of 2024 and what we're looking forward to in 2025, Toyota and Subaru slash prices on their EVs, and CATL develops a new skateboard chassis. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 382 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abul-Samad, and I'll tell you next week where I'm working. But for now, I'm just me.
Sam. And I am Nicole Wakeland from CarBuzz.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from SAE International. Unlike Sam, I have a job.
Well, I have a job. I just technically until Tuesday, I'm still an employee of Guidehouse.
Okay. All right. Fine. Whatever you think. Whatever you have to say, tell yourself at night.
And then Wednesday, I start a new job. Or actually, Wednesday, I'm an employee of the new company. But Thursday, I actually start working because Wednesday, of course, is New Year's Day. So.
Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, my God. Yeah. That's so cool.
One more holiday. This is that. What is that? That meme where it's like the days between Christmas and New Year's where you're confused, don't know what day of the week it is, and full of cheese. That's where I am.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where we are. I don't know who I am.
Dreading the thought of heading to Las Vegas for several days.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, there's that as well.
Yeah, the CES thing. It's coming.
All right. With that cheery start. Nicole, what have you been driving? Still.
Same thing I was driving last week. Still driving the Buick Enclave. But now I've had the opportunity to spend a week with it, actually just as a family car, because we had both my daughters and there was a boyfriend in there. So there were pretty much at least 5 of us, if not more, in the car the entire week. It was nice. It was actually really nice. It was nice and roomy. The captain's chairs are fabulous. So even my the tall boyfriend was able to sit in the car comfortably, which is really nice. He was plenty of leg room and such.
Did he get relegated to the third row, or did he get one of the second row captain's chairs?
My youngest went to the third row because she just hopped back there. She's like, I'll do the third row. So she just went back there. But it was really nice. Although it doesn't appear that mine has heated seats in the second row, which I think are an available feature. Mine does not. There was much. They were very disgruntled because I turned on the heated seats and the heated steering wheel, and I was like, "Oh, this is so nice!" Like, we don't have heated seats, and then it took me about 10 minutes to figure out how to, because the rear seat, just for the AC, for the HVAC, the heat and the AC was turned off, which you do so that kids can't play with the controls or whatever. And once they're set, they're set. But also means your adults in the car are like, "Hey, Nicole, can you change this?" I'm like, hold on a second, jabbing. Where is it? How do I get it to flip from front to back? So my brother-in-law was like, "This is ridiculous. How come I can't use this?" But they thought it was really cool. They had their own controls, control how hot it was back there. And then you could see, and I could see him moving up and down. I'm like, "What are you doing? You're just playing with it." He's like, "Oh, you can see that?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "Why do they do that?" I said, "So that when a stupid kid does that, we can stop them. You're not a kid. Stop it. Just find a setting. Leave it alone."
So I forget. Did you have the Avenir or the Sport?
No,
Touring?
I didn't have the Air. I had the Sport Touring, and I'm thinking it might be an Avenir thing.
It is. Yeah, I'm just looking at I just pulled up the build and price page for the Enclave.
We didn't, because initially I said, "I think I have heated seats," and they said, "No, we don't." And they were very sad about the lack of heated seats, but did like that they had their own controls. And I enjoyed driving it. We played around more with the Super Cruise. It doesn't seem any or better or worse than it did when I was using it. I even used it at night, and it was about the same. Didn't really change, but it was doing a few rough lane changes and a few rough turns. It just doesn't. And I did message the good folks at Buick, but I'm thinking they're rightly taking a break and on vacation. So if I hear something back from them, I will give an update as to why mine might seem a little wonky. I'm still convinced it could be a sensor that's not quite where
not calibrated correctly.
It's close, but if this was a self-driving stuff or a driver assist, from 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't even have noticed it, but I know that this is better than this, So yeah. So I just spent more time driving around in this, and it was great. It was fine. Actually, I really enjoyed driving it. It was a nice car to have for 2 weeks now with the family. One more week.
And is that front wheel drive or all wheel drive?
All-wheel drive. And we did use the all-wheel. I mean, it did come in handy. There's even a snow mode. So we put it in snow mode. Snow mode because we had a little bit of snow, a couple inches of snow that turned the roads to a disaster for a very brief time. And then it melted and you wouldn't even know we had any snow. But for a little while there, the roads were kind of mucky and it handled it just fine. It was like that 2 inches of that packed, icy, slushy mess. And it handled beautifully. Yeah. So it did quite well. So in the snow and just driving around and comfortable and quiet and easily held all of our stuff. We even did the little split, put down part of the third row, but not the other part of it because we had so much, the gifts, the big swap that happens on Christmas morning. We had too much food and presents and we couldn't fit it all just in the back because you can't stack things when you have food. You just have a layer. You know what I mean? Like we need more room for because you can't stack things on top of each other. You cannot stack
layers.
Well, I mean, if you get the right kind of containers, you can stack the food.
You could, but we had tiramisu with just tinfoil on top of it.
Oh yeah.
You can't put something on top of that. We had a lot of tinfoil wrapped things, I guess, that could not be stacked on top of each other. But no, so I truly am enjoying driving and it's nice. And I've decided that I love remote start. A lot of my vehicles don't come with remote start available. Like you just can't use it. It has remote start, but you can't. This one does. And we had a couple of cold days. It was awesome. I'm like, oh, I love this. My new favorite feature, something as mundane as remote start. It was brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, my wife has remote start in her Civic and loves that. It's a great feature.
Yeah, it's so nice when it's really cold and it warmed it up pretty good. We had a day where it was only, I think, 8 degrees and we let it warm up. And by the time we got out there, it was still cool in the car, but it wasn't cold in the car. Like, I'll take it.
So usually when we drive these things on, media launch drives, we're not typically driving with a full load of people in the vehicle. It's usually, one other person in the car with us.
Yeah.
Maybe we might have a third person, if one of the engineers or executives comes along for the ride for part of the ride. With a full load of people and stuff and everything, the new Enclave is a 4-cylinder engine. Did you feel like the 4-cylinder was having to work exceptionally hard, or was it adequately powerful?
I thought it was, that's a good question, and I did think it was fine, and I was curious. Basically, loaded up the way a family would use it with a full load of people and a full load of stuff in the back. I never thought it didn't have enough power to get going. Like that Christmas morning, we had to drive some side roads. We had to get onto the highway where the speed limit's 65, and then back onto twisty, turny side roads. And it wasn't a noticeable difference to me in terms of how the performance and the power that it had. I didn't suddenly think like, oh, I got a full load of people now. Like it was just like driving it when it didn't have a full load of people. So it did really well. I think it was more than adequate. I mean, this is not a car it's not a performance car, so don't expect that, but it has plenty of get up and going. Yeah. Loaded down with people and tiramisu and gifts for Christmas. It was just fine.
Okay. Well, as long as it can handle the tiramisu, I guess that's probably the most important.
Yeah, that's all I really know.
That was one of the tastes.
It's not handling tiramisu.
Right. If that was too much, I'd be like,
tiramisu. Sorry.
Tiramisu. That would be the deal breaker. I'm sorry. That was too much for your car. I'm out.
Excellent. All right. And just as a reminder, do you happen to have the Monroney handy? How much was the Enclave?
I don't have the Monroney handy. There was not one.
$43.
If you give me 2 minutes, I can tell you because I have the pricing in the story I wrote last week. So
okay,
we'll check in just a moment.
All right. Well, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Robbie, did you have anything this week?
I just drove to Palm Springs from the Bay Area, so I didn't have anything. I took my car.
Oh, okay.
Which
one? The Ioniq 5?
Yeah, I took the Ioniq 5. So 504 miles each way.
Still a good road trip car?
Yeah. Except that, traveling on the Saturday.
How disappointing was Electrify America?
It was actually okay. So it's disappointing in a way that the infrastructure is disappointing because on the way there, we left Christmas Day. because my wife has to work Christmas Eve. So we left Christmas Day. It wasn't too bad. We had to wait like a few minutes a couple times before we could charge. No big. Plug the car in, 200 kilowatts, 150. More than enough. 10, 15, 20 minutes waiting at the charger tops. On the way back, leaving the Saturday after Christmas, where everyone had Thursday and Friday off. Turns out lots of people are traveling that day. In fact, all the people are traveling that day. So many of the charge stations were full when we got there. We waited a few minutes at one, like 20 minutes at another, and then another we waited an hour. Ooh. And this is on I-5 at Kettleman City, and this is their one. The issue is that Electrify America put out all these charging locations with 4 chargers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 6 if you're lucky. And then there's one.
My local one here is 6.
Yeah, so you're like, all right, fine. And the one I was at was at 10. It had 10 chargers. This is the 10 charger location, and it took an hour to get to because 2 of them were down. So that was just like,
Electrify America, of course.
And then I look on the Tesla app, and there's like 70 chargers. Like on each side of the road, like 40 on one side, like 30 on the other. And you're just sitting there and you're just like, you've had time to. And this charging station is nice. It has a canopy over it. It's next to a Mexican restaurant that I like.
The EA one or the supercharger?
The EA one. The EA one. So, and I've gone to this charger a bunch of times during regular driving without the holidays. But during the holidays, it can be real rough. So waiting an hour.
A lot of people there. I mean, I know you waited an hour. Were there like people behind you? Were lots of people waiting, or just
yeah? It was just a long wait because and so I was looking at all the cars. I'm like, oh, that car's gonna take an hour. That car, because some brave souls were traveling with Chevy Bolts, and hats off to them. A few were like Kia Niros and Konas, Kona Electrics. Good for them. And then, but I was just like, oh, that's going to charge slower. That's going to charge faster. That's going to charge this. Is going to. So you always want to be in line behind like Porsches, Lucids, and Hyundais and Kias.
Hyundai products, yes.
yeah. So you watch the Hyundai products like pull up and then and then leave after like 15 minutes. And then you see the poor person in the Kia Niro who was there for a good hour just charging. Like they plugged in when we got there, and we plugged in. And when we actually started charging, it was going at like, what was it, 211?
Wow.
Yeah, it was actually once you got there. It's just that there's, when I hear about and I know Iona is like hey, we have some new charging stations. That's the new joint effort from essentially everyone but Volkswagen. They're going to be charged, we just put in 10. We're going to put in 10 chargers. We're going to put in 12 chargers. And there's like a Tesla supercharger station, but it put in like, I don't know, 2 blocks from my house right now. That's got like 15 chargers.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like when these companies start talking about, we need to put these charging stations in, they've really got to think a little bit bigger.
It's a little bit bigger than 4.
yeah. And it made sense. Like 4 made sense like 5 years ago, but
which is when EA started plotting out their charging network.
Yeah.
But I feel like they should have kind of looked at what the Tesla team was doing. They were making larger and larger and larger, and put in larger and larger and larger charging networks. And starting next, the end of this year. Well, I guess the end of this year is like in 2 days. Starting next year, you'll get an Ioniq 5 with the Max port, and I think that's. I saw a couple Mustang Mach-E's pull up behind us, and I'm like, nope, to the Tesla station. Because they have the adapter, and they can go over there, and they can do that. And a lot of people who are using EA, especially me included, I'm getting free charging for 30 minutes. So you're like, well, I'm going to get it for free,
and you can get from 10 to 80% in 15 or 18 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it was it's pretty nice when it's just that. When you can do that 3 over 200 kilowatt charging, because you're just like, yeah, I'm a hero.
Well, and Hyundai and Kia have just announced like in the last week or so that they are going to be providing free adapters to owners of their EVs starting early in the new year. So
really? Oh man, I didn't even hear this.
Yeah, those should be.
I was going to go out and buy one.
Yeah, so I don't know when they're actually going to start shipping them. They should be coming pretty soon, I think, because Tom Malogny from State of Charge YouTube channel, he already got one that he was testing.
Tom.
Yeah,
Go watch Tom's videos. He's really good.
Yeah, so they'll be they should be coming fairly soon, I think, from Hyundai and Kia and Genesis to be able to use NACS chargers. And you mentioned Iona. They've also started opening up their first few charging stations already. Their first one near their headquarters in North Carolina has just opened up, and there's a couple of others that are opening up as well, like this past week, I think. So those are starting to roll out surprisingly quickly.
Yeah, and and again, I've driven up and down the state a bunch of times in my Ioniq 5. During the regular times, it's I typically don't have any issues. I've had to wait a few times. I've gotten to a whole location that was turned off and you didn't know until you got there, which was bad for some people. But that's still, and my wife made it. She's like, every station, everywhere you go where there's like stuff, there should be a charging station. I don't understand why there isn't one. I'm like, exactly. And you explain it's expensive. There's permitting. There's blah 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 blah.
And that doesn't matter. You also have to find a location that has power.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter to the average person. The average person wants to be able to go from here to there in their EV without any issue. And if you're doing that over Christmas, or I'm assuming Thanksgiving, we didn't go anywhere for Thanksgiving. It can be rough. It can be a little tough. We were also going like 500 miles, and like I said, I have a left foot on the freeway. So like, I don't care. I just want to go home.
And a lead foot with strong headwinds.
Yeah. When you drive north, there's always those headwinds. Like once you get past like Harris Ranch, like maybe about 60 miles past Harris Ranch, it's just like headwinds the entire time. It just blasts
in both directions.
Yes, uphill in the snow, fighting off bears. So if you're traveling today, with your EV, well, I guess it doesn't matter because this isn't going up today. This is the Sunday after Christmas. But if you're driving on the holidays, unless you have a Tesla or you have an adapter,
or you find a Tesla station with Magic Docks.
Yeah. So I don't think a lot of people know about those. So you might be able to be the person who sort of sneaks over there and uses that. So
you can be that guy that parks in the wrong slot because the charging cables are so short. That's the only way you can reach it.
I keep going over to the charging station, the supercharging network they're building over by my house. I keep driving by and looking. They haven't put the cables on yet. Because I want to see. I'm like, they better have long cables.
Are they the newer style of dispensers that don't have a big hole in the middle?
Yeah, it doesn't look like they have the big hole in the middle. So I think that they're the newer style. They're still pretty much just the internal metal. Yeah, they don't have anything else on them yet. Just the guy yelled at somebody, "Yeah, these are Tesla chargers." The guy was working there. So yeah, and it shows up in the Tesla app that it's coming.
Yeah,
eventually.
Cool. Awesome. And if you use the Tesla app, you can also, if you're a non-Tesla owner and you load up the Tesla app, you can see where the stations are that have Magic Docks. They highlight the ones with Magic Docks.
You can tell them what kind of car you have, and it'll tell you like what stations are nearby, and you can tell the app whether or not you have an adapter. So
yeah.
So if you don't have an adapter, it'll just send you to Magic Docks one. Magic Dock stations. Jeez.
Oh, that was a tongue twister.
All right. Well, I had a couple of vehicles during the past week for shorter loans. One was the Kia K4 GT line, and I got this one for over a long weekend because it was the last of the finalists for North American Car, Truck, and Utility of the Year that I hadn't yet driven. So I wanted to try it out before I had to submit my ballot for the final votes. Mm-hmm. I was impressed. I liked it a lot. I mean, I have actually liked the previous, before it was the K4, the previous generation of Kia's compact sedan was the Forte. Mm-hmm. And I always liked the Forte, and the K4 is kind of different looking to kind of they've gone to this newer Kia design language, and it's a sharp looking car. It's surprisingly they dropped the hatchback for this generation, so it's a sedan only, which I think and it's a fastback. A lot like the Civic, the current generation Civic.
Yep.
And I really think they should have made it or should offer it as a hatchback similar to the Civic, so that you have a bigger rear opening.
A true hatchback with the extra versatility that comes with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at the current generation Civic, the Civic sedan and hatchback look basically the same. There's very little difference in the profile of those two, except that the sedan has fixed rear glass and then a small trunk opening. It's a decent sized trunk, but as with most sedans that have that kind of fastback profile, the opening is small, and so it limits how big stuff you can put in there. And the same thing is true of the K4, whereas the Civic hatchback has the same basic profile as the sedan now, unlike the previous generation, which was more distinct from the sedan. But now the whole back end opens up with the glass and the what would normally be the trunk lid on the sedan all comes up as one piece. And it would be great if Kia would do the same thing with the K4 to offer something like that, because it really increases the utility of the car. And interestingly, the K4 is actually quite a bit longer than the Civic. It's about 7 or 8 inches longer than the Civic. The interior is really nice. It's nicely upgraded. You've got a lot of the same interior components that you find in other Kias, like the EV, especially the EV9. So it's got like a lot of the other recent Kias and Hyundais for that matter. You've got what looks like one large piece of curved glass across the top of the dashboard, the 12-inch display for the instrument cluster, another 12-inch display for the infotainment system. And then like the EV9, there's also another section in between the two where there's some climate control stuff. And exactly like the EV9, that sits right behind the steering wheel. So to actually use any of those, you've got to kind of reach your head over and look around the steering wheel. So not a great layout there. So that that is a little problematic. Although
I feel like they wanted to be able to say they used the whole space, so they did it, and it's like, no, don't use that space.
Exactly. Yeah, just do something.
At least they have actual buttons for the temperature control.
Yeah. And they're the same. It's the same buttons and the same controls and everything that are in the EV9. So it's a lot of it looks like a lot of the same.
You get to reach around there, hit the auto button, and then just hope you never have to make any other changes ever again. Except you have to except the defrosters are back there, so that's sort of a bummer.
Yeah, at least the stop-start button is down on the console where it's easy to reach, unlike having to reach behind the steering wheel on the EV9. On the inboard part of the shifter stock.
I don't mind that. It's the fact that I can't get to that thing.
Yeah,
I can't see what's going on.
Exactly. So driving the K4 was really nice. There's two powertrains in the K4. The base setup is a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder with about 140-ish horsepower. The GT line comes with the 1.6-liter turbo that you find in a lot of Hyundai and Kia products. It's 190 horsepower, and let's see, it's over 200 foot-pounds of torque. It's quite a torquey little engine. 8-speed automatic transmission, not a CVT, not a DCT, just a traditional torque converter automatic transmission. It feels reasonably quick. I did my mileage loop that I do, and got about 31 miles per gallon with it, in mixed driving. It's EPA rated at 26 city, 36 highway, 29 combined. Like I said, I did a little better than that in my test. There's no hybrid version available of the K4, right? At least for now. Hyundai does offer a hybrid version of the Elantra, which is basically the same size, and that is considerably more fuel efficient. So it's not gonna, you're not gonna match the fuel efficiency of the Civic hybrid with this thing, which gets round about, roughly 50-ish miles per gallon, high 40s to 50 miles per gallon with the Civic Hybrid. You're not going to get that with this. What was interesting, because of the profile of this thing, because it's longer than the Civic and very sleek looking, it actually, when you look at it in isolation, it looks quite low. And my wife was commenting on it. We went out to lunch, and she was commenting that it looked a lot lower than her Civic.
Mm-hmm.
But when we pulled out the Civic and parked them side by side, there's like less than an inch difference in height, because the Civic just looks a little slightly stubbier, especially the previous generation. But even the current generation, it's about the same height. So it's less than an inch difference in height, but the Kia is longer, so it looks like it's lower than it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
But compared to driving a crossover, like compared to getting into a Sportage, you're definitely sitting a lot lower in this thing, which personally doesn't bother me. I like that. I prefer that myself. But for people that want to be sitting up a little bit higher, they might want to go for the Sportage or one of the other crossovers in the Kia lineup instead. Let's see what else. Lots of features on the GT line that I had. Like I said, the 1.6 liter turbo. You've got all of the usual ADAS features that Hyundai and Kia put on all of their vehicles, and it's got their highway drive assist, so adaptive cruise control, lane centering, which but it's a hands-on lane centering system. Works quite well, very smooth. Again, no issues with any kind of rough control with the ACC or anything like that. The wireless charging pad in the center console, and I think you mentioned previously, I can't remember which one you were, a few weeks ago, Nicole, you were driving some other Hyundai or Kia product, and you mentioned the kind of island that they put in the middle of the wireless charging pad. So there's like a little bump in there.
It kind of it acts like a little securing thing for your phone to
right. And one of the advantages of that, because a lot of modern phones have, for the cameras, have some sort of, like I have a Pixel 8 Pro, it has the camera bar across the top. iPhones have their little island in the corner on the back, and so most modern phones don't sit completely flat. And so what you end up with, when you put the phone down on a wireless charging pad, is you actually only have maybe 2 or 3 little small points of contact. So there's not a lot of friction there. And so the phone, when you go around a corner, is more likely to slide one way or the other, or accelerate, slide back and forth. So it's not necessarily lined up properly. Whereas when you have that island, now that little island, you've got that whole area that is in contact, and it sits flat, and so your camera bump, sits off to the side somewhere. And so you've got a larger surface area there. So more contact area and more friction. So it's less, I find it, even though you don't have like ridges on the side to kind of try and hold the phone in place, it actually stays in place better than it does on most wireless charging pads. So that was good.
I think it's one of those things that's a small feature that makes your life endlessly easier once you start living with it day to day. Like, I love that.
Yeah, you don't think about it, but it's helpful.
Like, you're never going to be sitting in the dealership going, "Wait, let me test how well your cell phone holds my holds that." But once you have it and you drive very many cars, you find that some of them are fabulous at it and some of them are terrible. And this, I really think the one that they have with that little raised, like you called it, an island, that's perfect. That island does such a good job of holding your phone exactly where it's supposed to be, so you don't constantly see the charge. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. I love that.
Yeah. What else? The seats are comfy. The rear seat, plenty of leg room. That sleek profile means that, like I could sit back there. I'm like 5'10"ish, somewhere between 5'10", 5'11". And my head was not touching the ceiling, but it was close. So, somebody like Robbie, who's about 17 feet tall, he would be uncomfortable. He would be kind of scrunched over, or Russ, would probably be scrunched over in the back seat. So under 6 feet, you're probably okay in the back seat. Like I said, legroom is fine for anybody, but headroom is going to be on the tight side. But otherwise, I like the K4 a lot. I like the way it drove. Handling was good, ride quality was good. It's got an interesting style to it. Total price for the GT line, which is the top of the lineup, came to $31,445. Take guesses at the destination.
1,100.
I was going to say $995.
Robbie gets it. It was $1,155.
Yeah.
And speaking of pricing, I did pull, since you're saying pricing on that one, I got the pricing for the Enclave. The one I had, the Sport Touring with the all-wheel drive, it's $49,400. And then the Preferred, which is a step down, is $47,000, also with all-wheel drive. And if you go the other direction, you go up, it's $60,000. So there's quite a leap from the Sport Touring to the Avenir, but heated seats and back. So
cool. Yeah, and the like I said, the GT line is the top of the lineup. The LX, the K4 LX, starts at $21,990. So 23,000, with the delivery charge, which is pretty affordable by today's standards. And obviously you don't get all of the features that were on this one, like the moonroof and things like that. This one had the panoramic moonroof. Let's see, wrong one. So this had a moonroof and everything. You don't get that with the LX. You can also get the LXS, which is only about $1,000 more, and you start to get a lot more features on there. So it's still quite surprisingly affordable, even with the without all the other extra stuff on there.
Extra bits.
Yeah. So the other car that I had actually just before the K4 was the new Nissan Kicks. And in the past we've talked about the first generation Kicks, that it was never a spectacular vehicle, but it was very affordable, and it was
how dare you speak ill of the Kicks like this?
I mean, it was not a particularly sophisticated car. Well, that was the key.
For the price,
you got a lot for your money. It was a great value.
It's like the Kia Soul of Nissan.
Yeah,
like you're getting a lot of value, and it's a fun little car, and it handles a little bit better than it should. Like everything it does a little bit better than it should for the cost.
Yeah, I mean, even though like the first generation
it's had an outstanding car,
the twist beam rear axle and things like that, didn't have a whole lot of fancy stuff. But if you were looking to buy a new vehicle, and you're on a budget, it was a fantastic value. You did get a lot for your money. I mean, granted, it's not a lot of money, so you don't necessarily get a lot, but for what you spend, you get a lot.
Yeah.
The new Nissan Kicks, as we talked about before, is replacing both the original Kicks as well as the old Rogue Sport. And so it kind of slots in between those two in terms of size. It's bigger than the old Kicks. It's more powerful than the old Kicks. It's got more features than the old Kicks. It's a little smaller than the Rogue Sport was. And it's cheaper than that was. So it's kind of an in between those two. So it's still a surprisingly good value. And the Kicks, the base Kicks S, with front wheel drive starts at $21,830. With the original Kicks, you could not get, it was not available with all wheel drive. It was front wheel drive only. So if you live somewhere where you get wintry weather, and you wanted all wheel drive or needed all wheel drive, the Kicks was not really an option for you. But with the new one, it is slightly bigger. It does have all wheel drive available. You can get the Kicks S, the base model with all wheel drive, for $23,330, which is one of the cheapest all-wheel drive crossovers you can get in the market. And even at under $22,000 for the front-wheel drive one, that's still one of the cheapest cars you can get now. It's hard to find much of anything at that close to $20,000 price point anymore. The one that I had was the SR all-wheel drive. So this is the top of the line model. Base price for the SR is $27,680. So now you're starting to creep up there where, maybe not quite as affordable as it was, because previously it maxed out, the old kicks maxed out at about 22,000, 23,000, I think, with all of the available options. So the new one is several $1,000s more than that. With the SR, you do get their ProPilot Assist, which is their hands-on lane centering and adaptive cruise control system. Get 19-inch wheels. The new kicks is, like I said, it's a little bit bigger, a little roomier, especially the back seat compared to the old one. Handles better. It's got independent rear suspension now. It does have more power. It's a 2-liter 4-cylinder as opposed to the 1.6 liter that was in the old one. So there's it's also got bigger screens for the infotainment and for the instrument cluster. It's still, I think it's a really good car. And if you're looking for a small crossover that is a reasonable value, I think I would probably be inclined to guide people towards the SV, which is the mid-level trim, rather than the SR, because I don't think you necessarily get enough extra with the SR. Save a couple of $1,000s, get the SV. You still get the larger 12-inch touchscreen infotainment system. You get wireless Android Auto and CarPlay, which I think with the with the base version with the S trim, you get a smaller screen and you don't get CarPlay and Android Auto on the base model, which is a little surprising. And given the price differential, like going from the S to the SV front wheel drive, it's only $1,600. Yeah, $1,600, $1,700 price difference, and I think it's worth the extra money to go to the SV if you can swing it, because you get that as usual. Kind of the mid level is the sweet spot for best value for your dollar. So I probably wouldn't go with the SR. The engine, is 140 horsepower, 141 horsepower, 2-liter 4-cylinder. It's got a CVT. When you put it in sport mode, it's pretty reasonable. It is bigger and heavier than the old kicks was, but it's still adequate. This is not you're not going to win any drag races with this thing, but as basic transportation, it will accelerate fast enough to merge with traffic on the freeways. You're merging onto the freeway, make some passing maneuvers. It's still, it's pleasant enough to drive. The engine's not particularly noisy. It's a nice basic transportation vehicle to drive. And, if you want something that's taller than a Versa, within the Nissan lineup, it's kind of a choice between this and the Versa. In terms of, similar overall size, but this is taller, whereas the Versa is a sedan, much like the K4 versus Sportage comparison. The Versa is a little bit cheaper, but you can't get it with all-wheel drive. Or not the Versa, the Sentra. The Sentra is the one I'm thinking of. So Sentra versus Kicks, and you do get some extra stuff on this that you don't get in the Sentra, like ProPilot Assist is not available in the Sentra. Although, I don't know that it's necessarily that useful. You do, even in the base model, the base S model, you do get adaptive cruise control. It's got a radar sensor as part of the ADAS package. So, I think the SV is kind of the sweet spot to go for. The one that I had the SR all-wheel drive premium package for $1,950. That gets you a panoramic moonroof, 10-speaker audio, heated mirrors, rear floor heater ducts, heated front seats, heated steering wheel, remote engine start, rain sensing wipers. If you feel like you need those features, great. if you're, like I said, if you're on a budget and you want something new with a warranty that's going to be fairly reliable, but you can't swing that extra $2,000 for that package, you're you can get by without it.
Mhm.
So the Kicks is the all-wheel drive Kicks is rated at 27 city, 34 highway, 30 combined. I got about 29 in my driving, and it was fine. It's a very, very acceptable car. I don't think anybody's going to be too terribly disappointed. If you're looking for something that is affordable, can carry 4 adults, has decent cargo space in the back, and all in, this one, this is pretty much as loaded as you can get with the Kicks, including delivery. It was $31,875. Guesses on the destination charge?
1100.
What was that, 1,100? Nicole?
$12.95.
Nicole gets this one. It was $13.90.
Yay!
$13.90.
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
Yep, they do. So 2025 Nissan Kicks, big improvement over the old one. Still quite affordable, especially if you stay away from the SR. And it's a decent starter vehicle. All right, let's move on. So speaking of Nissan, Nissan and Honda and Mitsubishi announced this week that I think we've talked about it last week. That there was some discussion of this, but they officially announced that they have signed a memorandum of understanding to look at a merger by 2026 between the 3 companies. What do you two think about Nissan and Honda merging?
Oh, you go first, Robbie.
I mean, and they're saying this isn't because Nissan's in trouble. That's sort of but it's kind of because
Nissan's in trouble.
Yeah,
Nissan's in trouble. I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, Nissan's they were decades of just sort of being treated like just not doing a very good job, and recently they've been trying to do a better job. It's just trying to catch up to everyone else who's ahead of them has been really difficult. And so I think Honda's finally, in the last few years, they're like, oh, we got to do this EV thing. They worked with GM on that, and they're like, okay, that's fine. Let's make our own thing. But, Nissan has a lot of people who've been working on the Leaf for a very long time and worked on the Aria. And they just don't have the capital to sort of be a GM. They don't have the capital to be a Hyundai when it comes to electrification. So they're going to bring in a little bit of extra experience that Honda probably doesn't have. And of course that body on frame. Honda can get like another truck, beyond the Ridge line, that they can sell here, there, everywhere. And people love the body on frames. So I think it helps.
And don't forget
both.
the big SUVs. The Patrol
And the big
Armada.
SUVs. Yeah, the giant SUVs. That fine. But I mean, I think it helps both companies in a way, but it really, really, really helps Nissan. And that's and then they talk about how Nissan needs to get its house in order for this thing to happen. And they'll start talking about, there's a timeline at the where is that timeline? I'm gonna find it. Hold on. There we go. End of July. In June, execution of definitive agreement concerning the business integration. So that's planned. So that'll probably likely be August. But Honda's doesn't really need Nissan all that much. They can still go it alone. Nissan needs Honda more than but if you can pick up, some extra factories, you can pick up some smart people when it comes to electrification. You can pick up, some additional platforms to help you build things out that you can share with other vehicles, and you might as well just go for it. I think is pretty much what Honda's thing, which is crazy because Honda is a very conservative company. Like most of the Japanese companies are actually quite conservative when it comes to doing anything. So this is actually a bigger deal than I think most people realize, just because of how Japanese businesses work.
Yeah, I agree with you, Robbie. I think that it's an interesting deal. I think it stands to benefit Nissan in some ways and Honda in others. And as much as they say it's not a rescue, it is. It's a rescue.
They're like throwing them a lifeline, but
Dude.
the lifeline is like it's got another name. It's
Right.
called the line of life. Like
Right,
there's
which is
something.
totally different than the lifeline. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just. I mean, I guess I'm overall I'm happy to see it. I mean, you don't wish for any automaker to close up shop. You want them to succeed. There's a lot of good people working at Nissan, and as you pointed out, they've been trying to improve their products. I think they're making efforts to overcome one of their challenges. Like if you look at the new Armada and you look at the new Murano, they did a good job. So I think they're on the right track. But unfortunately, it doesn't sound like they could have kept on that track if they'd stayed on their own. So if working with Honda and becoming, I don't know, whatever the new name would be, you have to think how to mash up Honda and Nissan into one word.
Don't forget Mitsubishi.
And Mitsubishi.
Well, Mitsubishi's like this wait and see. They're like, hey, we're just gonna watch and wait and see.
Yeah.
It's like a really weird, like, hey, we know we like this, but let's just. It's like a throuple.
How about Nissan? No, I can't do it. I only can get
Well-
Honda and Nissan in one word.
I don't think
Yeah,
they're gonna get rid of the name.
I know, but I want to. I want to
Yeah,
mash it
wait.
together like a celebrity couple.
The way
Nissan?
they describe it, it's going to be the three companies under a holding company. So they're probably going to come up with something completely new like Stellantis.
It makes
when they merged
absolute sense
PSA
to
and
everybody, right?
yeah,
Like the Hyundai Motor Group, like HMG.
yeah. During the press conference, Honda CEO Toshihiro Mibe was asked, what makes Nissan a strong business partner, and his response was, "That's a difficult one," and that got some chuckles from the journalists in the room. So, it's not, like you said, it's Honda's rescuing Nissan, but
Mhm.
to a degree, there's some, I think there's some element of rescue for both sides.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of our focus is on the North American market, but these are global companies, and one area where both companies have been struggling is in China. Every non-Chinese automaker is in trouble in China right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Chinese domestic brands have they've been on a tear for the last several years, and every non-Chinese OEM that's doing business there has had to cut back on their production capacity. Their sales and market share have dropped off dramatically, and now they're facing the prospect of competition with Japanese companies or with Chinese companies like BYD in markets outside of China. And so the extra scale that Honda and Nissan and Mitsubishi together, getting up to like 6, 7, 8 million vehicles a year, gets some economies of scale and platform sharing, powertrain sharing, especially with all the uncertainty in a lot of markets, especially outside of China, about the EV adoption rates. If they can share technologies, engine technologies, hybrid technologies, I think that can help all of them to get extra economies of scale and save on development costs. If Nissan and Mitsubishi don't have to develop their own hybrid systems and use what Honda has already got, that's going to be better for both sides.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good thing in the end. I would like to hope.
Yeah, I mean it's always tough merging big companies. They have different cultures, different organizations, and getting bigger is not necessarily a guarantee that it's going to be better. I mean, just look at Stellantis.
Yeah, that's true.
They've had their challenges over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
There's so many parts. So many different companies. At least with this one, there's just 2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
As opposed to 8.
But still, yeah.
How many actually are there at Stellantis? How many companies in
14
total?
brands.
14 brands. That's a lot of. That's too many brands.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Especially since a bunch of them are selling, like Lancia, are selling tiny numbers of vehicles, and having, Opel and Vauxhall, which, even when they were owned by GM, having 2 separate brands, for England and for the rest of Europe, just never, even though they were selling the same vehicles. The only difference between a Vauxhall and an Opel is the steering wheels on a Vauxhall steering wheels on the right-hand side and an Opel is on the left-hand side. Otherwise, they're the same vehicle.
Well, you get that funny little badge too. It's like a lion, monster, cow.
I think it's a Griffin.
Griffin. There we go. Lion, monster, cow. So all of those things. It's a Griffin.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. I was listening to TFL talk yesterday, and our friends Roman and Andre were talking about the Ram 1500 Ramcharger, and we talked last week about how Stellantis announced that they're shuffling around their launch schedule. They're pushing back the BEV version of the Ram to 2026. They're going to launch the Ramcharger first, and Roman and Andre were speculating on whether Stellantis was going to change out the engine that they're using in the Ramcharger, because when they announced the Ramcharger late last year, they talked about it having using the Pentastar V6, the 3.6 liter Pentastar V6, and in the release where they announced the change in launch schedule, they didn't mention anything about the engine, which actually I think Roman and Andre were making more of that than is relevant, because it was a very short release. It was only a few sentences saying, hey, with everything going on, we're pushing back the BEV. We're going to launch the Ramcharger first because there's more interest in that right now. And that's basically all they said. Roman was speculating that they would switch from using the Pentastar to using the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder. And Andre was saying, well, maybe they'll put the Hemi in there instead. In order
the 4-cylinder makes more sense just to save weight.
Well, actually, not really, because for this kind of application where the engine is not driving the vehicle, it's only turning the generator. With the V6, that allows, they're going to be able to take a bunch of components off of the V6. It's not going to have things like, an AC compressor on there, assorted other components. It's not going to have things like the variable valve timing system and other things. And a naturally aspirated V6 is actually not that much heavier than a turbo 4-cylinder when you factor in, okay, you got the turbochargers, you got the intercoolers, you got everything else. It's not actually probably that much difference in weight. And
does it need the turbo? Here's the question. That's the other question. Does it need the turbo?
I think for this use case, a naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder would be too small.
Okay.
Because then you're going to get into a situation like what BMW
i3
had with the i3, where the engine was too small and it couldn't generate enough electricity to maintain full performance. Whereas something like the V6 or the Turbo 4, you're looking 280 to 300 horsepower, and that's going to be enough to generate enough electricity from the generator to be able to maintain full performance. I think from a packaging standpoint, it's going to be easier with the V6 than with the Turbo 4. It's certainly going to be cheaper. The Turbo 4 is going to be a lot more expensive than the V6.
Oh, well, never mind then.
Yeah, so it actually doesn't make
mind.
sense to switch to the Turbo 4.
If it's got to be more expensive, because they just have
yeah,
lying around apparently.
Yeah, well, part of the reason for there's two main reasons for doing the EREV. One is going to be less expensive than the battery electric version because you're saving so much on the battery size, and the other is being able to tow longer distances. Get that extended range. And one of the things that Roman talked about was you want more power from your range extender. It's like, yeah, up to a point, but there's only so much you actually need. Unlike the i3, this thing still has a good sized battery. Plus, for things like if you're towing and you're towing, up a mountain grade, mountain grades don't go up indefinitely. They eventually go down as well. and you can utilize things like having maps that have terrain information, so that you can, if you're going on this road and you're going to be coming up to a grade, you start up the range extender earlier, and you charge up the battery before you get there, and you have enough juice from the battery to keep it going, without having to lose power. You're going to have enough power, so you're not waiting until you get to like 10% state of charge before you start up the range extender. If you're towing, you're going to be, and Stellantis talked about this last year when they announced it. Said, yeah, we're still working on the overall strategy. We asked them, at what point will this range extender come on? And they said it's going to vary depending on the conditions. If you're towing, it's going to come on sooner. It'll probably come on when you're at about 40 to 50% state of charge. And using the terrain information and other information, you can manage that so that you don't run out of power like you did with the i3.
There's a way you could hack the i3. You can ask Roman; he'll tell you.
Yeah.
He's like, you can get one of those range extender i3. There's a hack you can put in there to.
Yeah, you can have it come on earlier.
Yeah, well, of course Roman knows that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right. So Nicole, you had a couple of pieces that were posted on CarBuzz this week.
Yeah, we were doing all these sort of end of year roundup type stories, and I wrote several. We all wrote a couple of different ones. So which one do you want to tell? Let's see. What do you have on here?
Let's start with, what were your favorite cars of everything you drove this week?
So we had to pick favorite cars that we drove this year, and it wasn't like, okay, this is always the favorite for like very logical, like best car ever reasons. It was more just like, I like these. These made me happy. It didn't have to be like better than every other vehicle like it in the class. Like, no, I like this one. So I picked 6 vehicles on there. Some of them were stupid expensive. Some of them were not stupid expensive. So I had the chance to drive the Porsche Panamera for the first time. Fabulous. I love that. That was the sedan that felt to me like it was the getaway car. Like, do I want to pursue a life of crime? Like, this would be hard to do it because I can just get away in it. They might catch me. They might not. But it is also not inexpensive. It starts just over $100,000. So there will not be a Porsche Panamera parked in my driveway. So that was on my list.
You worked harder. I'm just saying.
I know, right? If I just worked a little bit harder.
Tell Russ to get on the ball. And
I know, Russ the slacker. It's his fault. Then I had a completely different vehicle that I drove very late in the year, which was the Ram 1500 RHO. I loved that truck. Like, I genuinely loved driving that truck. Could not be more different from that Porsche, but it was just such a good truck. It did what it was supposed to do off-road. It doesn't have an outrageous price tag. And it was still, you could take it on the road and you could drive it in. It was just as easy to drive on road. So I really loved. Have either of you driven that yet? No.
Not yet.
You? Okay. I loved that thing. Yeah. Sorry. Eventually. Then I put something that I actually drove some this year and some last year. And it was actually the 2024 North American Utility Vehicle of the Year, which was the Kia EV9, which impressed me because I thought, especially when Kia introduced this, the style, the features, it has all the stuff that you want. It has plenty of power. It has a range of up to 304 miles. And it just is a really good family car. So I like it because it does the EV thing if you want to do the EV thing, but it also just does all the family stuff. And not every vehicle can do both of those. You're like, oh, it's a really great EV, but lacking on family features, or it's got family features, but you can only get it with a gas engine or hybrid. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. The other one that I put on my list, and this is just because I loved how it looked, I put the Ford Bronco Sport on there, but
only with the stripes.
But only with the stripes. So it was the freewheeling one. You guys, it's the cutest car. I like the Ford Bronco Sport anyway. Like, I think it's a good vehicle, right? It's nice. It gives you that. It's not a Bronco. Like, you want off-road light. I mean, they still did the Rebelle Rally in this vehicle. So, I mean, it is tough. it can do some off-road stuff. But if you're not like that hardcore off-road, I rip the doors off and the roof off and do all the things. And you're like, no, I just want to do off-roading. And you want to have a car that looks straight out of the 70s. This freewheeling package is so cool. It's even, I just think those packages are fun for cars. Make your car look different because it's not just the color on the outsides of the vehicle. They even have it on the insides. There's the stripes are on the front seats and there's red accents on the dashboard and the doors. It's fun. It's just an intensely fun vehicle to look at, and it's a fun vehicle to drive. And then I had something on there that I had the K4 on there, Sam, which you just drove.
Mhm.
So I like the K4 for pretty much the same reasons. You know, it's a really good price point. It's a great replacement for the Forte. I think it looks good. It drives nicely. And it's just that pricing. It's hard to find good, affordable vehicles that are still pleasant to drive and pleasant to ride in. And this does it because it doesn't look like, you look at the outside and some people hate how this looks. I like how it looks, but I think
It's a bolder design, than the
right.
old one.
Like, and people are either literally like, this is the best car I've ever seen, or this is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I lean towards, I think it looks really great. I'd be happy to drive this. I like the styling on this. And I like that Kia made an affordable car that doesn't look like it from the outside. Like, so often really affordable sedans look boring and dull, and they look like they cut corners and they don't have a lot of personality. Inside and Out, this has personality, features, price, and it has 2 powertrains that are good. You know, they have the 4-cylinder, 2-liter 4-cylinder, or that turbocharged 4. It's a nice car. I like it a lot. And the last one I put on my list was just like one of my favorite cars, and it's stupid. Nobody can afford to buy this thing. The Aston Martin DBX 707. And I had an orange one. It was like driving a giant pumpkin down the street. It was amazing. It was the most fun pumpkin I've ever experienced in my life. It was such a fun little pumpkin. The Aston Martin, a fun little pumpkin.
There's a heartbroken pie out there somewhere.
There's a heartbroken pie. Nope, this is the best pumpkin. So I really love this. And it, you know, because if you're going to buy, I mean, this car starts at, I want to say 236. This is rarefied air. Not very many people are going to be able to afford to buy this, but it does everything you want a car that's $236,000 to do. And it's still an SUV that you could put people, like you can genuinely carry people in it. It's not this tiny little sporty thing. It's a little SUV, and with the color's called Synapse Orange. It's fantastic. I would get it in this color because that color's inside and outside. It's orange everywhere. It just is super fun to drive. It's a luxury brand that not many people get their hands on. It is, if you can afford that kind of, like, you want an expensive luxury SUV that's fun and makes you feel good driving it and also attracts attention. This is going to attract attention. They're going to see you 3 towns over in this color. So those are my cars on my list of just favorite cars. Not a logical reason for all of it. Some of it was just like, these made me happy and I enjoyed driving them.
Are there any, Robbie?
What are my favorite cars this year?
Yeah.
Oh man, Taycan Sport Cross.
Cross
Turismo. That I drove in Germany this year. I got to drive one of the Amazon, I guess not Amazon. It's actually the Rivian trucks around a block.
The delivery van?
The big delivery van. I don't know why that was so much fun, but I got to drive that.
That's perfect because it's not logical.
Yeah, I was like, let's see. What else did I drive this year that I really like? Did I drive the Corolla GTR this year? I don't think I did. I think I drove
Corolla
last
GR?
year. Yeah, the GR. Sorry.
It would have been on your list probably if you had.
It would have been on my list if I had. Let me think. What's another one? Gosh. You know what? I'm. It's crazy because I'm getting another one tomorrow for like the 3rd time.
What?
And the Defender. I really like the Defender. I don't know what it's. I really like. I like the 90. I like the 2-door Defender. I really like the Defender. Would I tell anyone to buy it? If you have money and you have another car, totally get the Defender. It's awesome.
I think you need to do it the way the TFL guys did, where they bought a new Defender a couple of years ago and had problems with it, and this year they bought a used Defender 90, and Roman loves it.
There you go.
So buy a used one. Take advantage of the depreciation and buy a used one.
Yeah. That's definitely how you want to get your Defender.
Defender have that stuff you can put sort of like on the hood. It almost looks like that diamond plating.
Yeah.
Not really. It's like black. Like this really cool textured. Like I'm a rough and ready car. I love that. I love how it looks on the Defender.
Yeah. No, it's I really like that car. That's really what it comes down to, is how much I like that car.
I like this.
I don't know why it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense in my life. I like you know what? I also like the Ineos, the Grenadier, and the Taskmaster or whatever, the Quartermaster, just because it's built specifically for one thing. It's like you want a Defender, but you don't have you can save a little bit of money, but you're also taking a little bit of a risk because it's like a new company, blah blah blah.
Living on the edge.
Yeah, you're living on the edge. So yeah.
So you're talking about the pickup or the SUV version?
Oh gosh,
the wagon.
I'm gonna say the wagon. I like the wagon, and so because there's so many buttons, like the things I like.
Some of them even do stuff.
Yeah, there's so many buttons to do things. I think the EV9 is a spectacular. Against my better judgment, I really like the ID Buzz. It'll charge at 200. This trip up and down the state, when we're charging like 180, I'm like, yeah, that's good enough. When it's like 5-10 minutes, it's nicer when my car charged at 244 on my way back, even though not ready to go that fast. So that was kind of nice on the way during my trip. But yeah, I mean, I wish it was a 800 volt vehicle. I wish it had NACS, but I really, really like that vehicle because you can do so much room for activities, and there's a lot of little clever features in it. And the dogs liked it. I got some pictures of the dogs sitting in it, and I showed it to some Volkswagen people. And they were very excited. So yeah. So those are kind of the EV9, the ID Buzz, the Ineos, the wagon, the Porsche, the Taycan wagon. And the Defender. So big cars that I won't drive, that I have no need for, two of them. The EV9 really liked, but even though it's like the same size as the ID Buzz, I'm like, maybe, I probably don't need it. The ID Buzz, because it's a van. You can do so many things with vans. Got lower, it's easier to lift things into it. And then the Porsche, because God, I love that Taycan so much. Like every version of it. But if you're gonna get the wagon. That's my big jam.
What about you, Sam?
Well, I definitely got to agree with both of you on both the EV9 and the Buzz. I love the ID Buzz. Even though I have no need for a minivan, if I did, it would the Buzz would absolutely be on the list. Probably top of the list of what I would buy if I was looking for a minivan. And the EV9, it's great to drive. It doesn't look like every other 3-row SUV on the road. I like driving it. I like looking at it. It's cool. And it's a great EV too. Also, the Ioniq 5N, the 5N was a hoot to play with, both on the track and on the street.
I'm the only person who has driven that car, as far as I can tell now. Yeah. I'm the only journalist who hasn't gotten in the 5N. And they told me, even Hyundai's like, there's one we could send you. And I'm like, yeah, I'll get around to it.
Just say, yeah, okay, drop it off. Yeah,
drop it off tomorrow.
Makes an excuse to go drive it. And then the Corvette E-Ray. I really enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun with the Corvette E-Ray. That was a blast. And also as far as another totally irrational car that I actually enjoyed a lot more than I thought I would was the Lamborghini Huracan Sterrato.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh yeah, you have to do
that. The lifted all-wheel drive, on all-terrain tires, Lamborghini supercar. It is absolutely ridiculous and irrational, but I had fun with it. What else? Let's see. Let me just look at the list real quick here. Oh, and then the the Chevy Equinox EV. I
Okay.
was,
I haven't driven it yet.
I was a little bit wary, that it would be a disappointment, because in some respects, some of the other GM Ultium EVs, have not lived up to what I expected of them.
Mhm.
The trucks are too heavy, too expensive. They, the software problems on the Blazer and the Lyric.
Yeah. The
But
Lyric drives so
what?
nice. The Lyric's a
Yeah,
nice car when
but
it's working. Yeah.
once they got to the Equinox, I think, yes, it's still a bit too heavy, but it is a car. I had no issues with it. As far as software, I haven't heard of anybody else having any major software issues with the Equinox. I think they're, GM's finally starting to wrap their heads around the software problems and fix the software quality issues. You can get it starting at 35 grand, get $7,500 tax credit on it for as long as that lasts. So you can potentially get, an LT, one LT, for like 27.5, including delivery charge, and that gets you 320 miles of range, and it's roomy and it's got cargo space, and it's not huge, but it's got it's really well packaged, and I think it is, for people looking for an EV. It doesn't charge as fast as the Hyundai Motor Group EVs. That's probably the one downside. It only charges at 150 kilowatts.
It's a bummer.
But other than that, everything else about it is actually really, really good. I was really impressed with that vehicle. And, when they did the drive program here back in May or June, whenever it was, it was a 2-day thing. And we had the Silverado EV RST and the Equinox. The Equinox was, a little more than a third of the price of the Silverado. And I liked it so much better than the Silverado.
I haven't driven the Equinox, but absolutely everyone I talked to was just like, it's really good.
It's really
Yeah.
solid. They did a great job with
Which
it.
makes me feel better about, like, hopefully eventually when the new Bolt comes out, it'll be, they'll just follow that path. I don't, because I drove the Lyric and the Blazer back to back, and the Lyric just drives so much better. The Blazer just feels very heavy to me. It feels like a block of lead with 4 tires, and it doesn't have to feel like that when you drive the Lyric. You're like, why is this like? Why is this like this?
Yeah.
And so yeah, so from what I'm hearing from everyone, the Equinox just drives so much better. So good on you, GM, and I'm happy that GM's finally gotten through a majority of their issues with production, which means we're going to
seem to have. We'll see next week when the Q4 sales numbers come out. It'll be interesting to see how well the Equinox did.
I'm seeing a bunch of Silverados. I've seen a couple of Equinoxes on the road. A lot of Silverados, like Caltrans uses them, like California Transportation.
Yeah, the work trucks.
Yeah, they're using those for the work truck, which is like, I feel like I'm like, wow, Ford, you really dropped the ball on that, didn't you? Like, why didn't you make that deal?
Yeah.
I'm like, how? Okay.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few Equinoxes over the last couple of months here on the roads around here as well. So those are my favorites of what I drove this year. I can't believe 6 I had 2 Chevys on there.
2 Chevy, what a world! What a world we live in.
What a world we live in.
What's wrong?
I had a car on there from a company that makes oil. I'm the sustainability editor. Like, their whole deal is oil. And then it was funny during that drive program where I was talking to the person, I head of marketing, or I don't know, and they were like, well, yeah, you mean EVs are inevitable. That I don't know why people get angry about EVs. It doesn't make any sense. And then at the exact same time, unbeknownst to me, the CEO was like, oh, maybe we're going to hold off on EVs.
Oops.
So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, yes, EVs are inevitable, and I can understand like a small company like them being like, maybe we should wait a little bit. But I want their EV with all the buttons. I want to push all the buttons. I don't.
But I want a better screen in there.
Yeah, better
screen is awful.
The screen is not great,
and the steering was terrible.
No, the steering's great off road. Just never drive it on road.
Yeah.
Never drive it on road. And if you're on road, straight lines, 65 miles an hour. Don't anything above 70. You're taking your life in your own hands.
Yeah, I mean, driving it on the highway, I found it wandering all over the place.
You gotta, you can't. You gotta be part of it. You and the truck have to be one.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh man, there's some corners here in Palm Springs on these highways. In the old movies where people are moving the steering wheel a lot, it doesn't seem like they're doing anything. That's what it's like driving 70 miles an hour around a corner in the Ineos.
All right. So, Nicole, your other story, what you're looking forward to in 2025.
So, and it was funny, it's EVs and hybrids, and that wasn't on purpose. I didn't realize it until after I sort of picked some favorites. I'm like, wait, I went on with the electrification thing without consciously trying to, which is kind of...
That's my bad influence.
It's your bad influence. I know. And I didn't realize it. It's like, you realize you didn't pick any. I was like, what? So on my list, which hopefully is arriving in people's hands sometime very beginning of the coming year, which is, this week, the Jeep Wagoneer S. I'm excited about this. I'm excited to drive it. I'm excited to see it and experience it. I mean, Jeep needs this vehicle to do well for them. I know they're offering some pretty hefty incentives for people right now who are willing to order one. And hopefully I'm hoping for them, because I feel like the brand's had some missteps, that this will do well for them. I'm excited about the Wagoneer S. I have been since I first saw it. So it'll be cool to see. And that's the first fully electric Jeep in the US. And it's their first global EV for the brand. So you can get other Jeeps other places that are electric, but you can't get
they have the Avenger in Europe.
Yeah. So this is the first for the US, but it's also their first global EV. So that's kind of a big deal. I also put on there, which, and again, this is next year, but dates, this one probably is going to be later than that, is the Recon, the Jeep Recon, which is their second fully electric vehicle that's in the US that they'll have. And it's going to be supposedly around the size of the Grand Cherokee, the 2-row Grand Cherokee. So it's going to be pretty big. They don't have a lot of details on this, but it's going to have the doors that come off, and it looks like the roof that comes off. And it's kind of neat. It's going to be sort of like a big brother to the Wrangler that still gives you that ability to go outside and open everything up, but it's going to be a little bit bigger. And I think it looks a little bit more premium, probably ride a little bit nicer than the Wrangler. The Wrangler is still at its heart a Wrangler. So I'm excited to see that. Another one.
It's because the doors come off, isn't it?
It's because the doors come off.
Yeah, well, it's actually it's about the same overall length as the 4-door Wrangler.
Yeah,
but the body is wider. Because the Wrangler has a narrow body, big fenders, but a narrow body. So this, more like the Bronco, kind of stretches the body shell out closer to the perimeter of the vehicle. So it should
be a little roomier inside.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's hard, like in a Wrangler, it's hard to put 3 people in the back of a Wrangler. It's tight. Mm-hmm. Really, it's too small. And I feel like this would let you. I think this would probably let you put 3 people in the back and not feel squished shoulder to shoulder. And now the next one I had on my list, we know like nothing about, but I'm just excited they're bringing it back. We've seen it. So they're bringing back a Honda Prelude, which was the car I learned how to drive a manual transmission on. My friend's Honda Prelude. So I have just like a little warm spot, a little soft spot for the Prelude. So I'm excited to see this. They say it's going to be 2025 model year. So hopefully it won't be too terribly long. I mean, this was the old one. It was discontinued in 2001. So it's been a few since we've had a Honda Prelude to look at. It seems like it could be kind of fun. And they have a feature they're calling S Plus Shift, which is supposed to be this. It makes me think of the N-Grin thing they have, the N for Hyundai. Mm-hmm. That it's going to do something to make driving a little bit more woohoo. So I'm excited. That's the woo. That was not more woohoo. Woohoo, more woohoo button. So I'm excited to see that, just because I think I like it when brands bring back old nameplates and give them new life. It's always a little bit scary because you never know if they're going to do it in a way that you feel like lives up to whatever your prior image was of the vehicle. So I have high hopes for Honda to make the Prelude something that I'm excited about. Another one that we it just officially made its reveal at the LA Auto Show is the Ioniq 9. I'm interested to see this because, Hyundai and Kia, they're different but the same. They're running their company, and so I'm curious to see what Hyundai did with the Ioniq 9 to make it better than the Kia EV9. Like, what have they done to make this? What driving style, comfort, all that kind of stuff.
It's got pixels.
It's got pixels. It's got so many pixels. I mean, that's the difference, right? You just nailed it, Sam. Pixels everywhere. It's supposed to have 335 miles of range. I mean, it's a decent range. It's really good for a vehicle this size. It looks great on the outside. So I'm excited to drive this one. I'm anxious to try this. I think getting EVs for families that look good and aren't outrageously priced and have the features family want it will go a long way to encouraging people to give them a go and having a range like that, so that it's not something that you feel like you have to stop all the time to charge. And the last one on my list is I've seen things saying 25, I've seen things saying 26, so it's going to depend. But there's an Alfa Romeo Giulia EV. Romeo. And I'm excited for that. I love the Giulia. It's one of my favorite sedans, just outright. I just love driving it. So I am excited to see what they're going to give us when they give us an EV. I'm desperately afraid they're going to break it. They're going to somehow ruin it for me. But I'm really, really hoping they don't. I'm really hoping that I will feel as excited about the EV version as I was about the gas version. So they're saying late 25. So my thought is, given Stellantis, we're looking at 26, but I'm going to hold on to that late 25 and see if it actually happens. So those are my most looking forward to. What are you guys most looking forward to?
Is the EV3 next year? I'm just going to say the EV3.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll go with it. I think that might be. Yeah.
The i3, the new i3, the Neue class. Anything Neue class, I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see the i3 until 26. We'll get the iX3.
The taller
version
the
next
crossover.
Year. And it says EV3. Everything I'm seeing, I'm just doing some little Googling. I think it's actually 26.
For the EV, I'm not looking forward to anything.
You're
then
still excited for it. It's not next year. I hate everything.
The Prelude, because all Preludes are good Preludes. Mm-hmm. And there was something else. I can't remember. So yeah, the Prelude, and then 2 cars that won't be out for like another year. Yeah, like what else is coming out next year? I feel like there's stuff that I can't really think of it. I don't know. Those 3. There's my 3.
Okay.
How about you, Sam?
I'm looking forward to see what Stellantis does with the Ramcharger.
Oh yeah.
I want to see how that all plays out, because I think that could be just the right mix of big truck and electrification.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the Ramcharger. I'm going to add that to my list. I'm stealing from Sam.
Yeah.
Oh, thief.
Yeah. So the Ram. I mean, I'm going. The Ramcharger is actually the one I'm probably most interested in. So kind of going opposite order from you, but so I would rank the Ramcharger as number 1, just because it is something else, something different that it's going to be a new niche for the North American market, and I think that it's got a lot of potential as long as they don't screw it up. And then the Ioniq 9 is a big one. Obviously, the EV3 whenever it comes out. Cause again, like with the Equinox, it's something that getting more affordable EVs into the marketplace.
Yeah, any affordable EV, if you're gonna like say, hey, here's a better thing, I'm like, oh yeah, because people need
Yeah, and along the same lines, the Chevy Bolt, the new Bolt, which is supposed to be out before the end of the year. We'll see. It may slip into 26. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's one that I'm really interested to try out. What else? The Wagoneer S is another one that I definitely want to try out. There's not. I'm trying to think if there's anything internal combustion. The Charger, the 6-cylinder Charger, is actually going to be interesting. That's going to be out mid year.
Okay.
So yeah, there you go. 6-cylinder Charger, the Ioniq 9, the EV3, the Bolt, and the Ram Charger.
It doesn't feel like it's funny. I know there's more vehicles than what I'm seeing coming. Everything I'm looking at to see what's coming, they're all showing us 26s. So, I mean, they could arrive sometime in 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they could be here in 25. It's a 26 year.
Right.
But it's also like, I think a lot of people, it's outside of like the Hyundai Motor Group, everyone's kind of going.
I know what else. The Honda Zero Series, their new EVs.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to remember.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I'm fascinating to see what Honda does with those, and we're going to get more of an idea of that at CES next week.
That'll be fun. I'm excited about those.
Yeah, showing those as prototypes, so we'll at least have a clearer picture of what the production models are going to look like, and then before the end of the year, those should be launching.
If they ship with Moto Compactos, that's just a one. Good job, Honda.
That'll make you happy if it comes with a Moto Compacto.
Moto Compacto in the trunk.
Yeah, just like as a little. It's like the trunk has a little like indentation. That's
all you need.
Put it in, and
doesn't take up much space.
You just roll into where you need
instead of a spare tire, because they never put spare tires on EVs anyway. Just put a Moto Compacto in there.
Moto Compacto.
Yeah, perfect.
Done and done.
If Honda does that for all their upcoming EVs, they win.
They win. That would be a
win. Game over, everyone.
All right. One more EV thing. Toyota, the BZ4X. We complained about a lot of stuff with this car when it launched last year. Most notably the price, but also slow charging, and also the instrument cluster that often, depending on how tall you were, would be half hidden by the steering wheel.
Yes.
But it's the BZ4X and its twin, the Subaru Solterra, are getting big price cuts.
Like really big.
Yeah.
Like insane. So anywhere from $55,380 to $6,000 reduction in price for the BZ4X.
And up to $7,000 on the Solterra. The Solterra Touring is going to be cut by $7,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
So the base price on the BZ4X is now going to be just over $37,000, $37,070, and it looks like the top trim is going to be $41,800. That's a big difference.
And the BZ4X still has just so
range
compared to a lot of the other EVs in the segment. The size of electric crossover. 252 miles for the front wheel drive, only 228 for the all wheel drive, which is not nothing to write home about. And the batteries still don't charge any faster than they did.
Yeah.
So they're still kind of slow charging. They max out at about 100 kilowatts, and the charge curves we've seen, they drop off pretty quickly from that peak. So not great charging, but at least it's going to be more affordable.
Yeah, great charging, not great range EV will cost you less.
Yeah. It'll be, I hope that I'd like to think that they're sort of getting these out the door so they have so they come out with the tiny FJ Cruiser EV, but that's just me.
I know. And I do the same thing.
Everything they showed at their EV thing in the background, just make one. Just make one of those things.
And send them to
Please.
Robbie.
And send it to me. Any of them.
To Robbie.
Any of them. And they sell these. I see these all over the place because Toyota people love Toyotas. If they just made a proper, like more, modern EV, they would sell them like gangbusters. I like Toyota. I just want them to make it the thing that I want.
Just want them to do what they're capable of.
Take the car Robbie
Use
wants, and he will land.
Use your magic Toyota powers to make a magic Toyota EV. That's what I want.
Okay. All right. Let's do one more and then call it a day. CATL, biggest lithium-ion battery manufacturer in the world. They supply batteries to many companies, including Tesla and Ford. Most of the Chinese automakers have used CATL batteries. Various European automakers have used CATL batteries, including Volkswagen. But they're getting into the business of making skateboard chassis for EVs. And they just announced something that they're calling the Bedrock chassis. Reading the press release comes across as a lot of word salad. There's not a lot of detail there. And there's a lot of stuff that kind of comes across as nonsensical. But there's a couple of videos, and there's some things that we know about CATL that make this potentially really, really interesting. So they're going to offer what they're calling this Bedrock chassis to OEMs that then they can build. They talk about decoupling the chassis from the body, which is basically what all skateboard style system architectures are. It's basically a body on frame, but the frame it's much more than just a ladder frame like we get on our big trucks and SUVs. It actually has the battery fully integrated into this, and there's no separate battery pack. So they don't talk about specifics of the cells that they're using here, but I think it's pretty safe to assume, since they showed tests of this thing being bent, being sawed in half, and being slammed, impacted, and not catching fire. It's probably some sort of LFP cell, and so it's a lithium iron phosphate cell.
Mm-hmm.
Which are known to be very safe and stable. And with this Bedrock chassis, they're doing a cell to chassis architecture. So there's no separate battery pack enclosure like you have with most EVs. They're just stuffing the bottom of this chassis with these prismatic cells. And you look at the images of it, and you just see nothing but rows of cells, these rectangular cells filling the thing up. And then they showed, the way the chassis is designed, it's designed to be very, very safe. One of the videos that's in the show notes shows the car being crashed into a pole, a stationary pole at 75 miles an hour, and not catching fire, which is something you cannot probably say about most EVs, especially Teslas. And it's pretty impressive. And I guess their first customer for these chassis is a Chinese OEM called Avatar. And they're coming out with a new model next year that's built on this. What do you think?
And I think it's pretty cool technology. I mean, if it is safer, the safety issue and the fear that a lot of people have that their EV is just going to explode into flames for no particular reason, forget an accident. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are still afraid. So I think this is great technology if they can hype up that idea that it's a safer option.
Yeah, I think, CATL is just so far ahead of so many, pretty much everyone. That's the thing. Like, China is so far ahead of the United States when it comes to EVs. CATL is sort of leading that charge of being just breaking ground, doing new, exciting things. And they have to, they want to they want to be the kings of batteries, which, they essentially are, to be honest. And saying, okay, well, the thing that people are concerned of are battery fire, so we're going to solve that in one way or another is a smart move for them. And, that video of that car just smashing into that pole, you're just like, oh my gosh. Oh, well, all right.
Yeah.
And then they just take it out into out into something like, yeah, and it still didn't catch fire later on because, you can have thermal runaway after the the collision. And, hours later, suddenly the car can just catch fire. So, yeah, no, it's good for them. And, it's, again, anytime someone does anything that increases safety, it makes everyone else be like, oh, now we have to do this. So hopefully everyone else, I'm hoping everyone else is thinking, okay, well, now we have to make.
I think the industry is going to be increasingly moving towards this sort of thing. I mean, the industry is already starting to move towards structural battery packs, and this kind of approach where you get rid of the separate enclosure entirely and just build the cells right into the chassis. Once you have cells that can do this, withstand this kind of impact without getting thermal runaway, it's certainly possible. Let me just read you part of this press release, though. The CATL,
it's really tough to read.
the CATL Bedrock chassis introduces a revolutionary 3-dimensional biomimetic tortoiseshell structure where the body and energy unit framework are integrated, deeply coupled to provide the energy unit with indestructible protection. It's aircraft carrier grade arresting structure. What does that even mean?
Whoa.
It's like military grade.
Yeah.
When you work in InfoSec, people are like, oh, it's military grade. There's no such thing as military grade.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Anytime you see anything that says that's security and it's supposed to be government grade, military grade, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
That's a made up thing.
It's aircraft carrier grade arresting structure, disperses impact forces across multiple pathways during a crash. Well, I mean, so do all modern vehicles, but
Yeah.
Gradually decelerating the vehicle and significantly reducing the depth and speed at which obstacles intrude the cabin. The utilization of submarine grade hot formed steel. Ooh, submarine grade. And aerospace grade aluminum alloys and metal barrier structures further enhance the chassis rigidity, making it virtually impervious.
Yeah. There's so they got someone who just got an A in their creative writing class, their sophomore creative writing class, to write this. This is, it's funny.
ChatGPT.
Or that, to like sort of, but so this is the thing when I was an editor and I would get interns from like J school interns in, they would write something like this. I'm like, no, I need you to take all these words out.
Yeah.
I don't know who you think you're talking to. This is not, we're not, no. This is not a Shakespeare class. This is journalism. Chill out. People need to be able to read this. You've added too many words. You have 500 words, but 200 words will do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is not where you're going to be, using your $2 words. Put the thesaurus down, right? Like a human, so humans can read this.
All right. Well, that is everything for this week. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.